So one way we can visualize this is just by telling what the two endpoints on the map are. So if I say I'm on the Ionian, which you can also call the 1, if you're in a Nashville number system, naming them 1 through 7, you can call it a 1-1 distance or an I distance. What does that mean? I didn't move anywhere. I went from the I to the I. I stayed on the same location. I'm calling that a modal range, right? You just name the two endpoints. That's like directions. Where are you going? I'm going from home. If you're going on MapQuest or on Google Maps and trying to get a map, well, you need 2 points. I'm going from home to school or home to work. That's what's happening here. We're going from Ionian to Ionian, 1-to-1 from a Nashville number system. What's the distance if I go from Ionian to Ionian? Well, I would think the best way to say it is, well, it's 0 steps away, 0 notes away from the Ionian node, which is the zeroest modal half step, which would be the first scale degree. See, so this 0 perfect first is basically equivalent to the 0 Ionian 0, zeroest step away, because we haven't moved anywhere. So this actually, all the terms kind of make more sense. Let's do the next one, which is a little bit, actually, let's do the ones that are in the key, and then we'll go back to the ones in the middle again. So what if I go to an ID? So now I'm going from I to D, right? The two locations on the map is an ID location. If you put it into MapQuest, we're going from I to D. Now note, there are actually 2 ways that we can do that. If I'm on the 1 to the 2, I can take 1 step forward, or I can take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 step backwards, because we have a block situation on the map. I can go around the block clockwise or go around the block counterclockwise. Right now, we're just going clockwise. We'll talk about counterclockwise later. So that means it's always in order. The ID distance, MapQuest, is always the same. The distance is just going clockwise. Now, again, we could add more complexity going around the block in octaves. We'll talk about that later. But even then, we can think of it as a clock face, and therefore the distance is always the same. So it's quite useful to think of it as a map, literally, and say you're going from the Ionian to Dorian, which from a Nashville number system would be going from the 1 to the 2. That's the numbers for the Ionian and the Dorian. So what would be the distance? It would be a 2 note away from the Ionian node, which is the major scale node, first modal half step, which means it would be the second scale degree, as we can see here, be equivalent to a 2 note away major second, right? I would call that a 2 note away from the Ionian node, and it would be a first modal half step, which would be the second scale degree. So in other words, if I was on the Ionian node and I went 2 notes away, 1, 2, I get to the D here, which is the Dorian node. If I'm on the Ionian node here, out of the 7 collection of notes, I go up 1 modal half step to get to the Dorian, which would be, if I messed up and counted this as the 1 in my measurement, it would be the second scale degree. So this is the normal way. Let's go to the next one that's in the key. We go to an IP. So now I'm going from I, and I'm going around in a circle to the location P, or 1, the first to the third from a Nashville number system. The distance is always the same. If we're going clockwise, we can replace the I and the P with a 1-3, so I would call it an IP modal range or a 1-3 modal range. What's going to be the distance? It's a 4 note away, because if I start on an I go 1, 2, 3, 4 to get to the P, 4 note away from the Ionian node, which is the second modal half step, meaning if I measure properly distance-wise 1, 2, the second modal half step up, which means it would be the third scale degree if I measured incorrectly, making that the 1 instead of the 0, 1, 2, 3. So that's going to be the 4 Ionian second modal half step would be equivalent to the 4 note away major third, right? So again, that major doesn't really tell you anything. The 4 is the thing that should tell you. It's a 4 third scale degree, which means it would be the second modal half step. The 4 is the thing that tells you the distance, and you know that that's going to be in the major scale, right? That's the way you want to see it, because the major shouldn't be the thing that's telling you the information. I want the 4, the distance, to tell me the information, because that's the important thing. right? And so then if I go to the next one, we go to an IY. So that means I'm going from the Ionian to up 1, 2, 3 to the Lydian, or it would be a 1, 4. So it'd be an IY modal range or an I4 modal range. Now note on these, the names, you might have a question of why I came up with these letters. The Ionian is an I, that makes sense. Dorian's a D, Phrygian's a P. Lydian, I put a Y because the L looks like a 1 sometimes. So I think the Y is actually better for Lydian. Mixolydian, the M looks like a major or minor, so I'd rather not use that, so I'm going to use an X. An Aeolian, a small a, I think works, even though it kind of get mixed up with an A letter of the note name. And then the N, again, is Locrian, that has an L, which would be a small L, and I would rather put it as something else, and I'm going to put an N because the Locrian's the crazy one, so to me it makes sense that it would be backwards, right? So that's where I have an N, it's backwards because it's crazy. All right. So then we have the IY. So what's going to be the distance? It's a 5 note away from the Ionian node third. So if I'm on Ionian, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gets me to the Lydian. 5 notes away from the Ionian, lands me on a continent, and it's the third modal half step, which would be the 4th scale degree. In other words, 1, 2. If I'm here, 1, 2, 3 up gets me to the 4th or to the Lydian. And if I made that the 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, it would be the 4th scale degree. All right, let's go to the next one that's in that lands us on a continent. It would be an IX. So if I go 1, 2, 3, 4 up, we get to the X. That would be a modal range. The two locations, I start on the I go to the X. We can replace those with the numbers. It would be a 1, 5 modal range. What's the distance of a 1, 5 modal range? If I'm going from location I to location X, well, it's 7 notes away from the Ionian node, and it's a 4th modal half step, which would be the 5th scale degree. In other words, if I'm on the I go up 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 notes gets me to the X or Mixolydian location. If I just look at the 7 notes from I, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's 4 modal half steps up, which means it's the 5th, if I make that the 1, scale degree. Okay, so then if I go the next one, so that 7 note away I4th is a 5th scale degree, right? So it's a 7 note away perfect 5th. So again, the perfect shouldn't be the thing that tells you, it's the quality. The quality should be known by the distance. The 7 note away 5th scale degree or 4th modal half step. The perfect, I would recommend that you kind of remove that as the trigger factor to tell you the importance of the interval. It's the distance that should tell you the importance of the interval. All right, and then let's go to the next one. We're going to go to an IA. So an IA should go from here to here. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 modal half steps up. And so it's an IA modal range or a 1, 6 modal range. What's the distance if I go from the Ionian continent to the Aeolian continent? It's always the same, even if it's not in this collection of notes. If I took the collection of notes of D sharp, then the distance from the Ionian continent to the Aeolian will be the same. That's the point. So I want to memorize all of these distances. I know that's tedious, but that's easier to do than try to memorize all the notes that are going to change relative to all the different scales, which is what a lot of people do. I mean, it's crazy. So this is a 9 note away from the Ionian node, 5th modal half step, which would be the 6th scale degree. So if I'm on the Ionian going up 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 gets me to the Aeolian node. And it's if I go on the Ionian and I go up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gets me to the Aeolian 5th modal half step, which would be the 6th scale degree if I make this the 1, making that measurement error. All right,